Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're doing a Meatless Monday, and it's not just any Meatless Monday. I mean, it kind of is, but it has a little bit of a theme to it. And that theme is fall. You know, it's October now, we're in the fall season. I was gonna say fall is in the air, but it was 82 degrees today. So it's definitely not feeling like fall, but I had to break out the flannel just to kick us off. Maybe I'll wear flannels. I don't have enough flannels, but I'll wear some flannels in these videos to make it feel like more fall. The issue though is I do turn off my AC for these videos because the AC will randomly kick on and be very loud on the recording. So it is kind of warm. I will power through it and still give you a great video. What we're making today is the most basic form of like fall. Like if you had to condense fall down into a thing, you'd be like pumpkins. So I figured we'd kick it off with pumpkin curry soup with chickpeas is the full title, kind of a mouthful. But I was gonna do a spaghetti squash lasagna, and then I saw this recipe on Reddit and was like, well, that's much better. So we're gonna go with that. And hopefully it's good. I haven't made it before, so this is gonna be a first time for me, but it seems easy enough. Based on the instructions, it doesn't really seem like there's gonna be any gotchas. So I'm pretty confident on that. I just don't think I've had pumpkin soup before. It's usually more of like a dessert kind of thing, but I'm optimistic. The picture looks good. The stuff in it sounds like it's gonna be good. I like curry, so high hopes. So enough rambling, let's run through the ingredients and then we'll get into cooking because that's what you're here for. You just wanna see me make some delicious food and not ramble about nonsense for who knows how long. 2 cans of chickpeas, sweet potatoes, red chili flakes, salt, pepper, shallot, curry powder, paprika, cayenne, pumpkin puree, brown sugar, and vegetable stock. So the first step is going to be the prep step, like we kind of usually do, and that's going to involve peeling the sweet potatoes and then thinly slicing them into wedges. And then we're going to rinse and, well, drain and then rinse, that's the correct order, the chickpeas, and then we're gonna dice the shallot. Now that we have the chickpeas and the sweet potatoes, we're going to put them on a baking sheet. I'm gonna line mine with foil just because it makes cleaning up a little bit easier. And we're going to coat those in oil, the red pepper flakes, salt and pepper, and then kind of hand toss them so everything's kind of evenly coated. Next is to bake the sweet potatoes and chickpeas that we have now kind of seasoned up in the oven at 425 for 15 to 20 minutes. And the kind of goal there is for the chickpeas to be crispy and then the sweet potatoes to be like fork tender, I think is how it describes it. So just kind of poke that with a fork, and if the fork kind of easily goes into it, you're good to go. Oh, and halfway through the cooking process, we want to flip everything over. So just get a spatula, start flipping, and then just put it back in for the remaining time. So now we're on to the step where we're actually kind of starting the base of the soup itself. And that's gonna involve just putting the shallot in. In my case, I'm using my smaller Dutch oven because I think I should be fine in terms of volume, because it's really only the can of pumpkin puree and like 3 cups of the vegetable stock that are gonna be of substance, and I think this pan should be fine. Famous last words. So we're gonna put the shallot in there and we're gonna cook that up for about 3 minutes, and then we're going to add the spices, which are the curry powder, the cayenne, and the paprika, and then just kind of stir those for about 45 seconds until it becomes fragrant, and then you got your kind of base of the soup going. The next step is to add in the brown sugar and the pumpkin puree, and then we're gonna kind of quickly stir that up so everything's kind of evenly incorporated together, and then we're gonna add in the vegetable stock, which in this point in the recipe, it says, well, throughout the entire thing it says water or vegetable stock, like that's the ingredients. But then at this step it says water or broth. And it's one of those situations where they're flip-flopping the term stock and broth, which are not the same thing. So I'm using stock. If it's somehow bad, which I don't foresee it being an issue, but maybe broth is the better move. I don't know. I know that there's I know vaguely what the difference between the two are, but I don't know the situations of like why you'd use one versus the other. So hopefully stock is the correct one here, and they just did a typo within the ingredients or within the steps themselves. That being said, then you're gonna add in the vegetable stock, stir that all up, let it get to a boil, and then you're good to go for that step. There's still more steps, so don't just leave it and walk away. So now that everything's at a boil, the next step is to season with salt and pepper, and then we're going to simmer for 15 minutes and then season again. Well, taste and then season. Don't just put seasoning in there. Taste it, then season it, because that's how you do cooking. You need to know what it tastes like to season properly. All right, so here we go. I'm probably not gonna be able to tip it, so you're just gonna have to kind of see it from a distance. But I mean also, it's gonna be in the thumbnail. So let's give this a taste because I have not had this before, and then we can kind of make our judgments accordingly. All right, so it's like an interesting layer of flavors. Like I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit more bland, but the spices that go into it actually kind of give a nice complexity to it. And it is also a little weird because I'm definitely used to pumpkin kind of being like pumpkin pie, those kind of things, or like pumpkin spice, that realm, but not really just like having pumpkin as the base of a soup. So that's kind of an interesting way of experiencing it. And the red pepper flakes that we put on the sweet potatoes and the chickpeas definitely are adding like a bit of heat there to just kind of give like another level of flavor within it. And I mean, I also just realized that the title leaves out the sweet potatoes completely, which seems a little mean. Like it talks about the chickpeas, but it doesn't say anything about the sweet potatoes. But that's kind of neither here nor there. But overall, like it works very well together, and it's very simple to do. I mean, the hardest part of this was cutting the sweet potato, and that's not that hard. Actually, maybe the shallot, I don't know. But like, if that's the level of difficulty that we're dealing with, anybody can make this. And also, it's a Meatless Monday, but it's a vegan Meatless Monday. I realized there are no animal products in this, unless there's something sneaky that I don't know about. And that is a thing that I learned the other day. Some like blanched ingredients like white sugar or like white rice can actually apparently be non-vegan because some of that blanching can be done like using animal bones, and I was like, it's one of those things that it has like a complexity to it that you don't realize being from the outside, similar to people looking at me living with celiac, and they'll be like, oh, like, you know, you just don't eat gluten, easy. And I'm like, it sneaks in a lot of places. You'd be surprised where it can kind of wiggle its way in. But, you know, that's one of the beautiful things of the world is like different people have these kind of like expertise in something that you don't realize has that depth to it. So that's always cool. But the recipe that we just made, overall, kind of to sum it up, I'd say delicious. Well, I guess the chickpeas are actually gonna be a good bit of protein in there, which they didn't get quite as crispy as I'm guessing the recipe would have liked, or at least I would have liked in the oven. And so I don't know if there's like a better way of kind of doing the chickpeas and the sweet potatoes separate, so you can kind of leave them in a little bit longer, or maybe put them closer to the heat source. But like when it said like they're gonna get crispy, I kind of was picturing, I don't know, something a little different than what I kind of got out. That being said, still delicious. It was just one of those expectations versus reality kind of situations. This recipe, I'd give it a 4. It's solid, and also the fact that it's vegan, like, kind of makes it pretty cool that it's up there within like the flavor. And I will say, granted, the red pepper flakes were kind of like the optional version of, I believe it was like silk chili powder or something like that is what the recipe called for, but I don't have that, so I didn't put that on there. And also I didn't put on any of the toppings that it kind of recommends. So there's some like coconut cream that you whip up, which that would be a good balance to the spice, like having like some creaminess there. And then also pistachios, which I don't really know how those would play into what we got going on, but I feel like the coconut cream probably would have been a good addition. Oh, I do kind of want to point out a thing that I experienced while cooking because of the steps of like the baking and also the stovetop. Probably flipping the order that they're done in would be a good move, where you start the stovetop and then you do the oven stuff, just because the stovetop takes a little bit more time. And then you can kind of sync it up. Like right now, my chickpeas and sweet potatoes were like cold. Obviously I'm putting them into a hot soup, so they heated back up, but they had come out of the oven well before the soup finished. And so I think that if you kind of do like the prep step like we did, and you prepare the sweet potato and chickpeas, but then leave that to the side, start doing like the shallots, and then once you get to the like bring it to a boil step, then put them in the oven. Well, actually no, strike that. That's when you probably turn on the oven, because it takes a while for the soup to boil. And then as the oven's heating, soup's getting to a boil, and then once it starts boiling, the oven probably will be done. And then you can put the chickpeas in with the sweet potatoes, and then you'd have the 15 minutes of simmering, and then I feel like that would kind of sync things up so that everything's hot at the same time. Which, I mean, granted, it doesn't need to be hot because it's going into a hot thing, so it kind of masks all that. But in terms of, I guess maybe like counter space and things like that, like everything being done at once sometimes is convenient. And so that's just kind of my view on that, is if you flip the order of those things, everything will kind of finish at the same time, which is always nice. And on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See ya.